Are you saying that you have no faith in the American judicial system? Is that what you're saying?
Professor Glees,
one second, Fahad. I know what you're going to. I know what you're going to say, but one second. Faisal, Professor Glees asked an interesting point. Do you have no faith in the American legal system?
My point is this, that this is a man who's committed a crime in the UK, put him on trial here, number one. Number two...
But against the Americans?
Hold on one second, let me answer the question. This is the United States who've opened up Guantanamo, who've committed numerous human rights abuses. You've got Bagram, you've got Iraq, you've got Guantanamo, you've got Bradley Manning, the poor chap, Bradley Manning, who, leaks some stuff to WikiLeaks. Look at the state of play and the...
Bradley Manning took the lives of thousands of decent people.
Rose-tinted perspective that the American judiciary system somehow it has been completely clear in everything that's gone on since 9/11. I don't buy into that one bit.
Well, I'm not quite sure there's a debate there then, because you could just stand there and say, I say it's black and I say it's white. I mean, Professor Glees, Faisal's point is that, that's the point we keep making, and it's Fahad's point, of course, that he should stay here and that our system can deal with it. And, you're going to just be repeating yourself again, to be honest. Fahad, you wanted to come in.
Because Professor Glees mentioned something earlier on that, well, if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be outraged. Well, the fact is that there are many IRA suspects or members, open members, who have been accused of plotting attacks on the United Kingdom for many years. The United States routinely refuses to extradite them.
Oh, look at the fundraising that went on in America throughout the 80s at
Absolutely. They refuse to extradite them because of their political interests. So the Americans will always look out for their own American political interests, as any government would do. But for Britain, for some reason, it's more worried about the American interest than the credibility of its own criminal justice system. I repeat, these crimes were not committed against America. They were committed in Afghanistan, allegedly, and in Chechnya. So any American interest in these areas is as strong as any British interest. Let's not equate this with a 7/7 type attack on civilians on American soil. This is not the issue. The issue is websites which are based in a number of servers around the world, and one of those was hosted in the United States for a period of 18 months only, over a 7-year period. The United States knew about these websites from 1996 onwards and never requested his extradition, even after 9/11, even after the website closed down in 2002, until this treaty came in, because they knew they wouldn't have to produce any evidence. It was just an easy way for them to be extradited. It's scandalous that the CPS has never ever, by its own admission, looked at the evidence against Babar Ahmad. It sent most of the material seized from his home directly to the Americans. We have letters from the...
Is that because they believe that the American legal system is strong enough and robust enough to deal with it?
I don't know. I can't go into why they did it, but the point is...
Well, that would be a suggestion, wouldn't it? Because, as Faisal pointed out, this isn't the Pakistani legal system, this is the American legal system. And that they would trust that CPS.
Well, the point is, this is the British legal system. If we're going to trust the American legal system, let's look at a few recent cases there. Recent cases have shown huge cases of entrapment where FBI officers actually enlist people...
The night goggles thing, trying to sell them night vision goggles, yes, and then...
Well, not just Christopher Tappen, but they've entrapped other people in Britain, in America, to commit acts of terrorism at Jewish synagogues and then prosecuted them. When they're the ones who provide them the money, the explosives, the plot, everything, these idiots went and tried to do something, and then they prosecuted them. And this is fact that's come out in case. These are issues which we need to address. We can't sideline this with emotion about 7/7 and Professor Glees comparing the British justice system to the Nazis.
I've been listening to this, sort of shaking my head. You brought in the IRA, you brought in 9/11, 7/7. This is a very simple case of a British subject who is alleged to have committed serious offences against the United States from a server in the United States of America, as you yourself have accepted. You've also said he has a case to answer. Well, what you're playing on is anti-Americanism. That's really what this is.
Professor Glees, the imbalance that treats American citizens in a better way than it treats British citizens when it comes to extradition. Let's speak to Iman, who has got in contact. Fahad, I will bring you back in, don't worry, but there are lots of people waiting to speak about this. Iman, hello.
Hi there. Yes, I mean, I think, first of all, we're sort of getting away from the main issue, which is that we're talking about a British-born citizen who has been locked up, essentially, for over 7 years without ever having seen the charges.
Well, but that's because he's challenging the extradition. He's been there for 7 years. If he'd just accepted the extradition and gone to America to fight his case in America, Iman, he wouldn't have been in Belmarsh for 7 years.
Indeed, this brings me to my second point, which is that we're operating under the assumption that his treatment will be fair when he goes across to America. Do you think that it is actually conducive to a fair trial to be deported away from your family, friends and legal teams, possibly having pre-trial conditions of solitary confinement? It would be surprising for a person to be able to mount a cogent case in court, having been through those kinds of conditions. And I think in previous weeks we've also seen evidence of the American system falling down. One thing is that, lethal injection is something that is practiced in America. Troy Davis, a man who was put to death a few weeks back, despite the fact that a number of individuals recanted their original statements and there was no direct...
he's not facing the death sentence, so Iman, he won't be executed because he's not facing...
It's part of the same system, isn't it? And I think that it really...
Not quite, but it's pretty far away from that, yeah.
I think it really undermines our trust in the American system. I don't think it is an adequate response from the part of the British people to accept that being deported essentially to America... But
it can't undermine your trust, Iman, in the American legal system if you don't have any trust in it to begin with. And it sounds by what you're saying is that you don't have any trust in it to begin with.
No, indeed. Well, I mean, I have deep concerns.
So they are a democratic country, are they not, Iman?
Well, I mean, I think, you have to look at actions as well as words. And I think that in recent history there has been evidence that points against this. And I do think this is deeply concerning.
Okay,
I mean, it's astonishing we're having a theoretical debate about a man who's been in prison for 7 years. I mean, this is sort of Kafkaesque. It's astonishing in the 21st century that we could be going through this and debating this in theory when no action is actually being taken.
But Imam, if I may leap in here, the reason that he has been in prison for 7 long years is because he's challenged extradition. It's been heard by 2 sets of judges in the United Kingdom. It's now still being heard by the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. So this is not as if somebody's being locked up without anybody listening to his case. You also say it's unfair that people should be deported away from their families and their friends and so on and so forth. The international legal system works on the basis that people will be extradited, not deported, but extradited. There's a difference between the two, as you know. And that's why, for example, we have war criminals sent to the International War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague. Mr. Milosevic, all these people, they would say, I don't want to be deported away from my family. I won't get a fair trial. But that is the way that the international system works. And it's tough. If you mess with America, it's tough.
I mean, coming back to your first point, isn't it deeply concerning that we don't have systems in place to prevent this? He's been in prison at taxpayers' expense for over 7 years now. It's an incredibly laborious sort of lengthy...
But that is because we believe in lawfulness in this country. We believe that somebody is innocent until they're proven guilty. The British taxpayer pays and has paid for Babar Ahmad's appeals. But now this process is coming to an end. It's not that there is no lawfulness, it's the other way round.
OK, let's speak to Nadeem in Birmingham. Good afternoon, Nadeem.
Good afternoon, mate. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Thanks for joining us.
I was just about to say, does it really make any difference where this man is tried? It's going to be one place, whether he likes it or not, and that would be the UK or the United States. And with regard to the world at large, we have 2 very established and long-standing justice systems that, on the whole, for the purposes of the world, they are transparent, they are recorded.
But Nadeem, can you understand, and I know Fahad does keep saying that he's not actually been accused of committing crimes against America. I mean, but do you not feel, though, that I mean, they say that he gained possession in 2001 of then classified US Navy plans relating to a battle group operating in the Persian Gulf, which discussed its vulnerability to terrorist attack. Now, I know, Fahad, you said that the person who he's supposed to have met up with, who gave him this information, was acquitted. Is that right?
That's correct.
Right, okay. That doesn't, though, let him off the hook, as it were, for the allegation that he was in possession of these documents, does it?
It doesn't acquit him as well, the fact that somebody else was acquitted. And I think you just raised a very valid point, and that is that you must have faith in your own legal system and our process. There is obviously going to be something. If America have stated we want extradition of this man without evidence, irrespective of that, the UK system, I would hope, will make its own. There's got to be, as they say, smoke coming from a fire. There's going to, whether that evidence is enough to...
Well, we'd rather believe in innocent until proven guilty than no smoke without fire, wouldn't we? I mean, that's not the base of a legal system, no smoke without fire, is it?
But you see, Nihal, at this stage, the fact that he's done 2 appeals, he's now in the Court of Justice in Europe, the fact that he's come this far, then obviously there is something there that the judges are contesting, that America also have a claim, and it's not just a folly. Otherwise, it would have, I mean, when he went before the judge at the first hand, irrespective of who the judge is, if there's no evidence there, he's not really going to sit there and extradite him. And as for the timescale, I think a very important point here is it's the system that is flawed, and this applies to us as public as large, to have a person 7 years just to decide what to charge him with or what's going to happen with him is a major flaw for us as a public at large. But within that, you've got to respect that it becomes a legal game on both sides. I mean, it could be Mr. Ahmed as well, saying, we want 3 months to look into this, and then that's another 3 months delay. And it's like the Professor said, it's coming to the end now, as in the last sort of stages, and that's why it's come back into the mainstream, and we're here discussing it, and these are the sort of issues around it. But equally, I think we have to remember that Great Britain has a long tradition of giving refuge to leaders from around the world who then sit here and perpetrate torture, killings, and then return back when it's safe to do so to their countries.
Okay, Nadeem, thank you very much.
We have to be very careful on how judgmental we are of what others are saying and what is not happening. So you have to be very careful on this.
All right, Nadeem, thank you. Fahad, can I just ask you, when, as Professor Glees said, it went before judges, his case, what were the judges looking at? I'm sure many of our listeners will be troubled by the fact that judges looked into this and said, well, actually, no, he can be extradited.
This is precisely the point that I don't think Nadeem, who called in, didn't understand this point. The judges never looked at the evidence. The judges looked to see whether the United States had complied with the correct procedure to request extradition.
Okay.
That's all it is, and that's
that's very different, Professor Glees, isn't it? That's not them looking at the evidence and on the balance of probability saying, yes, actually the Americans have a duty to have this guy. That's actually all the judges looked at, according to Fahad Ansari, is whether they had a right to extradite him or not, which is a purely legal issue. It's not based on whether he is whether there's probable cause or not. Yeah, it's procedural.
Whether they filled the correct form or not.
Right, okay. Professor Glees, that puts a different angle on it, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think it does put a different angle.
Well, it does in the sense that you've said that judges have looked at this case twice and they've said it's right for him to go there. That's not the same thing as saying that they've in the same way, sorry to interrupt you, but in the same way that American judge, and Fahad, correct me if I'm wrong here, American judge would look at the evidence against the person, the American citizen, and the British judges didn't have to do that, and indeed didn't.